Rangers supporters, if there is one thing that football constantly reminds us, it is that not every victory comes wrapped in a beautiful performance. Sometimes the game is messy, the football is scrappy, and the flow just never quite arrives. But when the final whistle blows and the 3 points are secured, those are the moments that can define a season. That was very much the feeling after the match against St Mirren. It was not the kind of display that will live long in the memory for its quality, but in the grand scheme of a long campaign, the most important thing was the result. Rangers found a way to win on an afternoon where the rhythm was lacking and chances were limited, and that alone gives supporters something to hold on to. The truth is, it was a difficult watch for long stretches. The game never really opened up in the way many fans might have hoped. Rangers struggled to impose themselves with the level of authority you would normally expect, especially when it came to the attacking side of the game. There were moments where the tempo slowed down too much, passes were played safe rather than with intent, and the final third lacked that sharpness that turns half chances into real danger. Even so, there was one moment of real quality that ultimately made the difference. The move that led to the goal showed exactly what this team can produce when everything clicks together for just a second. The build-up began with a clever piece of awareness in midfield. A delicate touch lifted the ball into the area, catching the defense slightly off balance. The movement was quick, the timing was right, and the finish that followed was calm and composed. It was the kind of strike that shows instinct, the kind that strikers dream of when they find themselves in that position inside the box. The ball found the back of the net, and, in a match that was never overflowing with opportunities, that single moment ended up being decisive. Despite the winning goal, Rangers did leave a number of chances behind them during the match. There were situations where the final pass was just slightly off, or where a player took one touch too many before pulling the trigger. On another day, a couple of those openings might have resulted in additional goals that would have made the match feel far more comfortable. Instead, the game stayed tight, and that tension remained right until the closing stages. One of the brighter moments came from a powerful effort from the captain that forced an excellent save from the St Mirren goalkeeper. It was struck with real intent, the kind of shot that had the crowd ready to celebrate, but the reaction from the keeper was equally impressive. Those moments are often the difference between a routine win and a nervy finish, and in this case, it kept the scoreline narrow. What stood out for many watching the match was the lack of cutting edge in the attacking play. Rangers had possession in promising areas on several occasions, yet the deliveries into the box often failed to create the chaos you need against a well-organized defense. Crosses were sometimes delayed, or they lacked the precision required to truly threaten the defenders. When a team dominates territory but cannot translate that into clear opportunities, it becomes frustrating very quickly. The wide areas in particular felt like they never quite caught fire. The wingers had moments where they found space, but too often the final ball either drifted away from danger or was easily cleared. In matches like these, that final pass or cross is everything. One accurate delivery can change the entire feel of the game, but Rangers never quite found the consistency needed to truly stretch the opposition backline. There were also a few performances that did not reach the level supporters would have hoped for. Some players struggled to influence the match in the way they normally do, and there were stretches where the attacking play looked predictable. When the ball reached the final third, instead of taking on defenders or trying to break lines with bold passes, the play often slowed down with safer options. While that approach protects possession, it can also allow the opposition defense to reset and close the gaps. That said, not everything about the performance was negative. Defensively, Rangers looked relatively solid throughout most of the contest. The back line handled the majority of St Mirren's forward moments with calmness and organization. Clearances were timely, positioning was disciplined, and the defensive unit rarely looked panicked even when the pressure briefly increased. Two of the standout performers came from that defensive structure. Their composure on the ball and willingness to step into challenges gave Rangers a level of control that helped prevent the match from turning into something far more uncomfortable. They read the game well, anticipated danger early, and were not afraid to put their bodies on the line when needed. In matches where the attacking play does not quite sparkle, those defensive contributions become even more valuable. There was also strong work in midfield when it came to covering ground and breaking up play. Rangers were not always fluid going forward, but but they still showed determination when it came to winning the ball back and protecting the lead. The midfield battle was physical at times, and while creativity was missing in moments, the effort to keep the opposition from building momentum was clear. As the match moved into the second half, the tension around the stadium could be felt. Supporters wanted to see the team push forward and finish the game off, but the rhythm still refused to fully arrive. The manager could be seen urging the players to raise the intensity, shouting instructions from the touchline, and demanding more pressing, more energy, and more urgency. It was a reminder that while the result was positive, there are still areas where the team must improve if they want to maintain their position in the most demanding matches of the season. Games against stronger opposition will require a sharper attacking edge, more creativity, and a level of decisiveness that was missing for large portions of this encounter. Yet in football, sometimes the most important lesson is learning how to collect points even when the performance does not reach the highest standards, and that is exactly what Rangers managed to do on this occasion. Even with the victory secured, there were still several aspects of the performance that left supporters with mixed feelings as they reflected on the 90 minutes. One of the biggest talking points once again centered around the attacking department. For long spells of the match, Rangers controlled territory and possession, but struggled to transform that control into genuine danger in front of goal. It created the sense that the team was always one mistake away from being punished, simply because the margin for error remained so narrow with only a single goal separating the sides. A major part of that concern revolves around the current options up front. The forward line has worked hard throughout the season, and there is no questioning the effort that the strikers put into pressing defenders and trying to hold the ball up. However, when it comes to the most important task of all for a striker, putting the ball in the net consistently, there are still doubts that continue to surface among the supporters. Too often the movement inside the penalty area does not seem coordinated, and instead of creating space for one another, the forwards occasionally drift into the same areas. At times it looked as though both strikers were attempting to play the exact same role. When one dropped deeper to receive the ball, the other did the same instead of stretching the defense. When a run into the channel might have opened space through the middle, both attackers ended up pulling wide, leaving the central area empty. In modern football, especially when playing with two forwards, that balance of movement is absolutely vital. One player has to occupy the center backs, the other needs to exploit the spaces that appear, and when that rotation does not happen, the attacking shape becomes far easier to defend against. There were moments during the match where Rangers found themselves just a few yards away from turning promising situations into goals. One opportunity in particular stood out as the kind that usually ends up in the back of the net. The ball found its way across the goal line area, and for a split second it seemed easier to score than to miss. Yet somehow the chance slipped away, leaving players and supporters alike shaking their heads in disbelief. Those are the moments that can change the entire complexion of a match, and when they are missed, the tension in the stadium only grows stronger. The issue is not purely about the strikers themselves either. A lot of attacking football depends on the service provided by the rest of the team. Midfielders need to deliver incisive passes that break defensive lines, and wide players must produce crosses that carry genuine threat. On this occasion, there were simply too many situations where the delivery lacked that decisive quality. Crosses were either overhit, cut out by defenders, or played slightly behind the attacking runs, making it difficult for anyone in the box to connect properly. Midfield was another area where the balance did not always feel quite right. There were occasions when two players seemed to drift into the same pockets of space, both looking to receive the ball in similar positions. When that happens, the flow of the game can become predictable because the opposition only has to close down a limited number of passing lanes. Ideally, one midfielder pushes higher to link with the attack, while another sits deeper to control the tempo, but the structure occasionally looked too condensed in central areas. Despite those tactical frustrations, there were still individuals who delivered impressive performances across the pitch. The defensive unit, in particular, showed composure and discipline throughout the afternoon. Whenever St Mirren attempted to build pressure, Rangers responded with organized defending and intelligent positioning. The center-backs were strong in aerial challenges, quick to step forward when necessary, and calm when playing the ball out from the back. One defender in particular stood out for his consistency across the entire match. Time and time again he read the danger early, intercepted passes before they could turn into real opportunities, and covered ground with impressive awareness. It was the type of performance that does not always dominate the headlines, but plays a massive role in ensuring the team secures the result. The fullbacks also contributed well in defensive situations, though their attacking involvement varied throughout the game. There were moments when overlapping runs created promising angles down the flanks, yet the final delivery still lacked the sharpness required to truly unlock the street Kieran defense. If Rangers want to add more unpredictability to their play in future matches, those wide areas could become a key weapon when utilized with greater precision. Another interesting aspect of the match was the visible reaction from the manager during the second half. From the technical area, he could be heard repeatedly urging the players to push higher up the pitch, demanding more intensity in the pressing game. His instructions were clear: close down the opposition faster, recover the ball quicker, and avoid allowing the tempo to drop. Those shouts reflected the reality that the match was far from comfortable, even with the lead intact. There were moments where that urgency did begin to show, with Rangers pressing more aggressively and forcing Street Kieran into hurried clearances. Yet the consistency of that pressure was not always maintained. Football at the highest level often comes down to maintaining intensity across the full 90 minutes, and that remains an area where this team is still developing. As the closing stages approached, the focus naturally shifted towards protecting the lead. The players showed determination in those final minutes, making important tackles, clearing dangerous balls from the penalty area, and managing the clock when necessary. It was not glamorous, but it was effective. When the final whistle eventually sounded, the relief around the ground was unmistakable. Victories like this can often serve as important reminders during a long campaign. Not every match will deliver flowing football or multiple goals, but the teams that challenge for honors are usually the ones that collect points even on their less impressive days. Rangers managed to do exactly that in this encounter. The performance might leave room for analysis and improvement, particularly in the attacking third, but the most important outcome remains the same: 3 valuable points added to the table as the season continues to build momentum. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. The whispers began early in the corridors of Ibrox, the sort of murmur that starts quietly before growing into a roar across Glasgow. Word drifting through the city suggests that a familiar Scottish star could be on his way to the blue half of town. According to speculation circulating among supporters and insiders alike, KIERAN Tierney is set to become a Rangers player. For many, the idea feels almost surreal. Tierney, long associated with the other side of the city, has built a reputation as one of Scotland's most relentless and committed fullbacks. Tireless down the flank, fearless in the tackle, and carrying that unmistakable edge of Glasgow football grit, the defender has rarely been a name imagined in a Rangers shirt. Yet football has a habit of delivering the unexpected, and the rumor mill insists this could be one of those moments. Sources close to the situation claim discussions have moved swiftly behind the scenes. Rangers, eager to reinforce their defensive line with experience and intensity, are believed to see Tierney as the type of player capable of lifting the tempo and mentality inside the dressing room. His leadership, even at a relatively young age, has long been noted by coaches and teammates throughout his career. Supporters have reacted with a mixture of disbelief and intrigue. Some see it as a bold move that would instantly add quality and fire to the squad. Others are still trying to picture the defender stepping out at Ibrox, the roar of the crowd greeting a player whose name has for years been tied to fierce rivalries in Scottish football. Inside the club, there has been no official confirmation. Still, the speculation refuses to fade. Conversations in pubs, on radio shows, and across supporter forums keep circling back to the same tantalizing possibility. Rangers may be on the verge of landing one of the most recognizable Scottish defenders of his generation. If the rumors prove true, it would mark one of the most talked-about moves in recent Scottish football memory. For now, though, the story remains just that, a rumor carried on the Glasgow wind, growing louder with every passing hour. And until the ink is dry, the city waits, watching closely, wondering if KIERAN Tierney truly is bound for Rangers. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.